Hello everyone, Ryan here. The Princess Diarist by Carrie Fisher. Listened to this audiobook back in November and actually liked it. Now granted, I didn't know much about Carrie Fisher other than the fact that, she played Princess Leia in the Star Wars movies, obviously. If you didn't know that already, where the hell have you been? But essentially, this audiobook, which it's also read by Carrie Fisher, and it's a memoir of sorts. It also includes journal entries, I guess, or rather, certain journal entries of hers, because I guess back when she first started as an actress, she kept or rather diaries, I guess. I can never really tell the difference between a diary and a journal. But either way, I guess she kept diaries or journals or whatever you want to call them, as a way to document her experiences as a young actress and all that, and making her way into the business that is Hollywood and whatnot, and I like that there's a lot of stuff in this audiobook about how she felt the first time she auditioned for the role of Princess Leia, and she auditioned in front of George Lucas and a couple of other people, and how she was nervous, and they asked her a bunch of really easy, simple questions, about what kind of acting experience she already had. And I guess at that point she had already, I want to say she had already been in a handful of movies, or possibly more than a handful of movies, which I haven't seen. It's my understanding that she was in some kind of movie with the well-known actor Robert Redford, I believe, or something, or she, either that or she auditioned for a part in a movie in which the lead actor was Robert Redford, and something like that. I'll admit there are certain parts of this where I kind of zoned out, just because there's a lot of stuff that, for me, I wasn't too interested in. I mean, I'll admit I was only interested in hearing about the Star Wars stuff. That was the part that I enjoyed listening to the most, about how, her first interactions with Harrison Ford and Mark Hamill, and the other actors too, the guy Peter Mayhew, who played Chewbacca. He talks about what it was like to just talk with those guys, hang out with them in between shots and all that, and in between scenes, and which actually, she admitted that she ended up having a really good time. And even though, I guess, when they were in the process of filming the first Star Wars movie, none of them really had any idea as to how big it would become. It was more they just all agreed that they were just very grateful just to have paid acting work, which is understandable. When I can imagine when it comes to being an actor, or in any kind of creative field. And obviously, anytime you can get any kind of, if you can get paid to act, or paid to do the very thing that you're passionate about, then that's always a huge plus. So, another thing, I mean, I would say, I think the most interesting thing for me about this audiobook was hearing about Carrie Fisher's relationship with Harrison Ford. Because I had no idea that Carrie Fisher and Harrison Ford actually dated for a while, I guess. And I don't even know for how long, I guess no more than a few years or something like that. But I guess when they first started, they kind of like just kept it hush-hush. They kept it on the down low. And pretty much the only people who knew about it were the other actors and everyone else who was a part of the Star Wars movie set and all that. But there's a lot of stuff where she described, or rather, I guess she tried to describe what Harrison Ford seemed like to her, and the fact that he just came off as like pretty much like pretty stoic. Like, supposedly she said that she rarely saw him smile or rarely saw him laugh. I guess rarely saw him even like look surprised or but she does also mention that the few times when she did see him smile or laugh or look surprised or shocked, that it became that much more, I guess, special to her because it was like a rare occurrence. And yeah, so I mean, pretty much I would say like, to me, it seemed like she described Harrison Ford pretty much in the way that I expected. And so, yeah, and pretty much it seems like, Harrison Ford hasn't changed much over the years. So, I mean, besides all that, the other thing I found kind of interesting, not as interesting as all the other stuff in this audiobook, but the fact that Carrie Fisher mentioned that for the longest time, I guess she wasn't really into like alcohol, like she wasn't a big drinker, but she did admit that she had smoked a lot of marijuana, but that supposedly, I guess, because alcohol would go straight to her head and make her act funny. And she mentions an incident there's one time when she, I guess, was kind of like peer pressured into drinking some kind of alcoholic drink. She originally asked for like some kind of sweet beverage of some kind. I want to say she wanted amaretto or something, which I haven't had, but I'm kind of aware of what it is. It's supposed to be like this sweet, like liquor kind of thing, or liqueur, where it's not like hard liquor, but it's supposed to be like sweet tasting more than anything else. So, yeah, she was hanging out with a bunch of guys. I guess it was like at some bar. And, some of the crew from the set of Star Wars, and because I guess they filmed most of it in London, I believe, at least as far as the first movie was concerned. And so she was hanging out with a bunch of like Irish guys, so they were all big drinkers, and they convinced her to take a drink of something. She requested amaretto, and one of the guys told her that they didn't have it at the bar, so he gave her like, I don't know, some kind of wine or something. It was like a very dark colored wine, and she drank it, and then she drank another glass and another glass, so yeah, she got pretty drunk. And then it was that point when, I believe this was like around sometime when, before her and Harrison Ford first started dating. Because then he saw a group of the Irish guys, they're taking her outside of the bar because she was like real dizzy. And they just figured like all she needed was some fresh air or something. And Harrison Ford kind of stepped in and he said something to the effect of like, where are you taking this young lady? Or, and they pretty much told Harrison Ford, we're just taking it outside to get some fresh air. And then he kind of like stepped in between Carrie Fisher and the guys that were like carrying her, like helping her walk outside. And he said something like, I'll take it from here, boys, or, it's okay, something along those lines. And so, I mean, which to me, it just seemed like, reminded me of something that I would expect Han Solo to do, I guess. And maybe not Han Solo, like, in the first trilogy, or like the first two movies, but definitely, Han Solo later on, as his character progressed and became a little less selfish. So a little less selfish, a little more selfless, I guess. And so it was things like that in this audiobook that Carrie Fisher talks about that and to me it really like what's the word? Really helped me to understand how, Carrie Fisher and Harrison Ford, like as far as when it comes to when they were working on Star Wars, how they formed a bond together, and the fact that it makes sense that they did date, because it got me thinking that that actually does kind of come across in the movie. And ultimately, I mean, I think that actually it made their characters that much more believable, I think. So, rather than being like a cheesy space opera, it came off as a little more realistic. I mean, as far as the relationships were concerned, the characters, the way they interacted with each other, and especially Princess Leia and Han Solo. So, yeah. And, ultimately, I liked this audiobook. I would say, definitely, I imagine, like, diehard Carrie Fisher fans would probably appreciate this a lot more, like, way more, would be, like, far more intrigued by everything that Carrie Fisher talks about. And like I said, because for me, even though I liked it, the only parts I cared about were, the parts in which she talks about Star Wars, and anything to do with Star Wars, I'm all for. So, yeah, I guess ultimately I would give it, I give this audiobook 4 out of 5 stars. Yeah. 4 out of 5 stars, so that's it. That'll do it for my review of Princess Diarist by Carrie Fisher. Thanks for watching this. Thanks for listening. As always, till next time, don't forget to keep it real, keep on rocking, and peace.